I don't know.
What?
What?
Listen, John.
Made you think, huh?
Listen, John. I'm fine with you recording me, except for when I say the word "the." So you have to bleep out every single time I say the word "the."
See, Keith,
Got
this is
it?
what we're talking about.
Bleeping is expensive, Dan.
I mean, it's not as hard as it looks, but I mean, at the same time, this is what we're talking about. Was
Having
may or may
been
might not make this visual.
having been an audio producer engineer, if I had to bleep out every it comes down to about $20 a pop.
Woo.
Is
Yeah.
that just through audio?
Bleeping is expensive.
Is that a rights thing, or is that just a
time thing? It's just a time thing.
Okay.
And I'm talking about local here, South Carolina, University of South Carolina when I was an employee there as an audio producer engineer. If you were in Hollywood and you're paying your sound editor, I don't know, $100 an hour, bleeping comes
Yeah.
to some money,
Yeah.
especially if you were bleeping out every the. But I mean, just getting him. Look, you got to go through. You got to listen, and every single occurrence of something you must bleep out. You take a 1 hour podcast. Well, there's an hour of his time.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't stop to find anything, he's just got to listen through it, right? In order to find the words.
Yeah. Bonkers.
Yeah, I've no desire to go unless I was being paid, which unfortunately,
I'm gonna
this
pay you.
This is all about the love, not about the money.
Paying you with love, John. Paying you with love.
I'll take that.
All the shares.
I will. I'll take those.
Being recorded.
We're being recorded. We've gotten 2 minutes in. See, this is the other thing, Keith. Here is we've gotten 2 minutes into the podcast before. No, it's because this is what we call a cold open before we leave the theme right. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, folks. Welcome to Karate Without Belts. My name is John. I'm joined today by two illustrious gentlemen. First, I will introduce him because I found out we have a distant family connection, as it were. Introducing to the podcast, the one, the only Keith. And I'm going to try to get this right because I asked Dan before. Mosher?
Yes.
Nailed it. All right.
Just like kosher, but with an M.
All right. Mosher Kosher. Welcome, sir. Welcome. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
And of course, the only reason Keith is here is by the benevolence of the man, the myth, the guy who's got this. Everyone says he's got a green gi, but it's not that. Dan Bernardo. Welcome, Dan.
Ciao. How you doing?
I'm getting by. I'm doing actually pretty all right. It's been a weird couple weeks. But doing good. Welcome, gentlemen. We had to get through a couple technical things, but here we are finally. Keith, Dan, what have you guys been doing this week in terms of training?
Cool. So this week has been primarily back kicks. We've been working on a lot of kind of angled entries, retreat entries, any way that you can enter and use back kicks. And so that's always been kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, that's basically the theme of my last couple of weeks of training in classes and such. Nothing fancy.
Cool. Taking out the back, as it were. Keith, sir, how about yourself?
This past week on the books was groundwork. Every week I go through, I have about 10 topics, very generalized topics. However, due to various conditions, I didn't have a lot of students showing up, so I ended up with a student who needed to start to work on his intermediate form. And by that, Wing Chun has 6 primary forms, 3 primary standing forms, a beginning form, Silam Tao, which if you search Wing Chun and on the web, that's all you'll see for the most part. Chum Kiu, which is an intermediate form. I got a student who's just learning that, just starting with that. We focused on that a good bit today. Had a couple other people in there, and though it was groundwork, I focused more on locks, wrist locks in particular, how to lock them, because I have seen in the past students try and use too much body when it's all really tiny steering wheel kind of stuff. So that was today.
Awesome. Sounds great. Been a while since I've been able to work with anybody and doing that. And, it's always the little things, right? And always people trying to over muscle. And when you actually get down to it, it's just mechanics.
That's something that Dan and I talk about all the time. We find constant comparisons between what he does and what I do. And we were just talking today. It's all Qigong and Tai Chi. It's all the little things. It's relaxing, and just small movements are the main, as long as the energy is in the right place. Isn't that the goal? The goal is not to be big and grandiose. I mean, I know that's what most guys do these days. Let's pump a lot of iron. I'm going to get really big, and that's how my martial art gets better. But that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be an understanding of flow of energy, in which case it all becomes very small movements. Don't you think, Dan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, too many people try to make, how should I say? We talked about like the tangential movements. They're moving out here with their fingers, with their hands, and their hands are doing things, but they're doing things independently from the body. And all you have to really do is just a slight movement of the body, and the hands move a lot. So if you keep your hands still and you move your body just a little bit, your hands move a lot. You don't have to move your hands, you just move your body. And then you have a good structure to move. That I think people struggle with a lot.
And I think that goes into what you guys kind of gone through. And I think this is a great segue, because correct me if I'm wrong, it was maybe 3 weeks ago, you guys had a little bit of a shindig, and it had a very interesting title called, well, I'm going to let you guys say this because I don't want to get it wrong. But I think it was universal. Everything that's martial is universal, or universal martial.
You're so close.
Or martial law.
Good martial is universal. And so, when I was talking about moving the body to move the hands, and you start to look at no matter what martial art that it is, they all use the same tool. Well, except for weapon arts, but empty hand arts all use the same tool, the body. And so, if you look at karate, Tai Chi Chuan, Wing Chun, White Crane, wrestling, I don't care what it is, we all do the same stuff. The only thing that differs is how it's taught, not what is taught. And so the whole weekend we decided to, because Keith teaches different martial arts than I do, and yet we're constantly looking at each other and going, yeah, we do that exact same thing. And not only do we do the same thing, but we do it for the same reason. It has the same purpose. So we decided to create a weekend where we train in different martial arts with the same, looking at the same principles and how they're taught differently within the different martial arts. And it was a lot of fun.
I would say not only how they were taught differently, there was literally one specific day where we kind of focused on, okay, in Tang Soo Do, we teach this way. Mm-hmm. In Wing Chun, we teach the same thing this way. Mm-hmm. But the focus was also to distill down to what is that universal part. Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, let's take what I was working this morning, a wrist lock. Dan has wrist locks. I have, because the wrist works only so many ways. It's the same on all of us. When you get into some people studying a kata that maybe has a wrist lock on it, they get so focused in the grand appearance of the movement, they forget that the wrist lock is this little part, this little thing. And so the idea of the workshop was to let's cut away all the chaff. Let me quote Michelangelo, cut away all the stone that is not David. Okay. Take the granite. There's a David in there. Let me cut away all the stone that is not David. Let's cut away all the flourish that is not, oh, here's the wrist lock. And it's the same in that art, when you get down to that level.
Yep. You know, when you start to then look at just basic principle ideas like trapping, like neutralizing and controlling incoming force, like footwork, like all of these things, they are the same. And we had a really good time showing, again, like he said, just how they're taught, but then going, oh, that's the same thing, and getting people to go, wow, it was good. It was fun.
Like Dan would show a trap from one of his young or something like that, and then I would go, we do the same thing, but here's an entry that we might use. And a lot of Dan's students they'd have trouble for a moment, but then they would realize they're doing the same thing. And when Dan was showing his approach, a lot of my students or Wing Chun folk would for a moment have trouble, but then realize, oh, this one core part is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And once they got a hold of that on both sides, the rest of it became easy.
Mm-hmm. It was funny.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I want to hear a funny thing. Tell me a funny thing, Dan.
Well, it was funny because, like, you know, Keith would show something and I would notice my students get confused, and I would show them the form from us and they would go, oh, and then the same thing backwards. His student would get confused and then he would show them, he would do that, and they would go, oh, and that's how they got it. So like it was a what do you call what would that word be?
Moments of epiphany.
Yeah, but it was tied.
Insight.
It was tied to their the thing that they know.
It was tied to recognition.
Recognition's a good word. Yeah.
What happens for a lot of people, you're looking to do a specific thing. Let's take something very straightforward, like strike somebody. But we get focused on all the preparatory movements around that. And so we lose sight of, well, all this really is moving my center forward, sinking my weight, and striking. So we would show something, Dan would show something, and my students would go, I don't quite get it. They get confused by all the preparatory stuff around the core. And then I would show them something that they had done 100 times. And, oh, okay. Like Dan said, there'd be that moment of recognition. Oh, okay, that's the thing. We, as humans, we confuse ourselves with all the extras on the outside. But a good martial artist should recognize that it's the little core stuff that's actually doing the job. It's not the gun, it's the bullet and the gunpowder. Okay? You take the gunpowder and the bullet, that's what does the job. It could be a BFG or a pistol, right? But people look at they look at the container, and they don't. That's what they focus on.
Mm-hmm.
They don't focus on, oh, well, it's expanding gas and a piece of lead.
Yeah.
That's the same. That's
with
the
a
same.
rotating metal thing that goes out the other end. Yeah.
Right. That's the same, whether it's a
That's
BFG or a pistol. It's exactly the same.
And one thing I will say, Keith, is that I think it was Dan who said this last time I had him on. It was like you had this like great idea to basically do this commercial of like looking toward the stars or something like that. And I was like, that's awesome. Who is this man? I want to know him better.
Yeah, it was totally his idea.
Can he adopt me? I know I'm almost 35, but
what led to it was Dan and I have worked side by side in our own independent capacities for probably going on 12 years. Is that about right? When did you start it?
10 years.
When did you start at the old place?
I think I started there in 2012.
Okay, well, and then you moved in 2016. 12 years. But yeah.
12. So it's 2 now.
Okay, yeah,
So
10 years. Okay, yeah, 10 years.
Who cares about
And
math?
so,
Math.
yeah. So
Algebra.
over that course of time, Dan would post a hymn and I'd write a comment, oh, that's right out of Chum Q. Or I would do something and he'd go, we do something just like that. And especially since he moved to his own place and he let me teach there. One thing that I noticed, and I've mentioned it before, and I find this fascinating. I have a script. I plan out my classes to some degree. I have 10 major topics. And this is to force me to go over everything that Wing Chun has, because Wing Chun is a complete art. I do groundwork, I do weapons, everything. I have to be sure. People like to do what they do best. As an instructor, I have to teach everything. So I have this script. And I'll come in and Dan's class will be doing the same thing that we're getting ready to work on. And he and I have not talked. Or I'll be in and Dan will come in on Saturdays and he is getting ready to do the same thing that I am working on. Or his students will comment, we were just working on. And so that has happened for us more times than either of us can count over the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And from that, Dan said we started talking about we need to do a workshop. I think I came out one evening as he was heading out to his car and I said, we need to do you need to do a workshop. We need to do something like that. And it was within a few days, he agreed and we came up with some ideas. And then to lead to what you were just talking about, I walked in one Saturday and Dan said, what are we going to do for a commercial? And I said, just follow my lead. And I handed a camera to a guy and said, just point it at us. And I just walked up and patted Dan on the shoulder. Dan, we need to do a workshop about the universal aspects of martial arts. And he took it and ran.
Yeah, that was it.
What I found most beautiful about that was just because the reason why I find that so beautiful, the reason why I was so moved by that was less that it's two guys who are clearly friends, but it's also that it's two martial artists who are just who do different things and just agreeing to do them together, and with really no apparent ulterior motive of trying to steal students or trying to one up another guy or trying to embarrass somebody. All the other things that I'm sure we've all seen throughout the years traditionally happen in those circumstances. And what sounded like from what you guys talked about, and why I want to kind of draw that out of you guys a little today, is because it just seems completely genuine and altruistic that you want your students to do that, and there's no come over to me, I really know the stuff. Not to bring up those negative aspects, but unfortunately, those things have always kind of plagued those type of interactions.
Unfortunately, they exist because of marketing. You got to come to my martial art because I have to tell you it's better so that you will come to my martial art. And then I have to tell you, and this might be a little before your guys' time, but still, there was a drive. You cannot go to another martial art because it will corrupt your core martial art, which is, it's a commercial thing. I need to keep you as a student. That, however, Dan doesn't have that. I don't have that. Wing Chun, being a relatively newer emergent martial art, doesn't have it built in. In fact, it has built into it, go out and acquire other things. Wong Ting, one of the more recognized modern instructors in a book in the mid 1970s, he has all his senior students go out when they get to a certain level, when they get to the closed door stuff, the private stuff, the high level stuff, what would be called black belt or whatever. He requires them to go out and study another martial art and bring aspects of it back in to the school, because as Dan and I were talking, it's all universal. A wrist lock is a wrist lock. It's a wrist lock. I don't care if you're a BJJ guy or a JKD or Wing Chun or Tang Soo Do or Chin Na or whatever. A wrist lock is a wrist lock is a wrist lock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think because Keith, you and I have known each other for so long, and we have existed in the same space for so long, that helps a lot, because we don't have that competitive nature with each other. And it's not so much that we may not be competitive, but we don't have that competitive nature with each other.
I don't think we're competitive, to tell you the honest truth.
Yeah, that's just not who we are. And part of it too. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and it reminded me of something that happened. I don't know, a few years ago, when somebody called me, and he said, "Hey, a martial arts school just opened up right across the street from me. What should I do?" And I said, "Go invite him to lunch. Make a friend." And he's like, No. I mean, like, what happens if he takes my students? Da, 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 da. And I said, "Why do you teach?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Why do you teach?" "Well, I want to better the community, and I want to better the students, and I want kids to grow up in this way, and da da da." I said, "Fantastic. So the more people that do that, the better, right?" And he went, I said, "The more people that do that, the better, right? You can't teach everybody. So why are you really teaching?" And he was like, But it's true. A lot of times we teach and we open schools and we have this grand philosophical ideal about what we want to do to the community and how we want to, teach kids to be disciplined and confident and become leaders. And then we get upset when somebody opens up and tries to do the same thing, like something's missing. And so it goes deeper than just your martial art is my martial art is better than yours, or my martial arts it's deeper than that. It is a human tribal thing that we don't want. We want to be the man. We want to be, and I think that gets trickled down into everything that we do. I mean, when I used to work at a church, and I mean, I would hear the same crap coming from churches. Even churches within the same denomination would compete for members. Why? Not because they wanted to save their souls, because they wanted to make sure they get their money.
It's coming from the same presbytery, doesn't it? Oh, well. Wait. I mean, I don't know if you guys were ever part of Presbyterians, but didn't you ever hear Presbyterian plastic?
Yeah.
No, do tell.
No, it's basically lines of credit religious groups get, and tax free, and there's a head to all these things, and that's where all the money flows anyway. So we're so worried about the underguarding stuff, where it's now you have anyway. We're not. This isn't the.
Gotcha.
We don't want to venture too far into that. Otherwise, we get canceled or become really popular.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
John, why do you study a martial art?
Why do I study a martial art? Good question, Keith. Right now, it's because it's what's keeping me on, or what's keeping me going. If I can.
Okay, so
if I can put it that way, but I mean, I don't want to get too serious.
Yeah, but it's about something that's inside yourself. Okay, so why do you teach?
It's actually my job, but teach martial arts but teach martial arts is because it's just literally the thing that inside me wants to go out. I think it's pretty much what any other human, us as human beings, us as living beings are I am living being. Thing inside of me wants to go out to other human beings.
Why does Bon Jovi play the guitar?
I don't really listen to him. I'm from Philly, and everyone's like Bon Jovi, and I'm like, no. Why does
Rembrandt paint? Why? Because there's something inside them that the act of doing is pleasurable, and they need it to go out. We run into trouble, unfortunately, when we conflate that with money. Hence Dan's guy, somebody across the street, what if he takes my students? Wait a minute, why do you do a martial art? Because I enjoy it. Why do you teach it? Because it just oozes out of me. And there's some people that go, hey, Show me your stuff. That's really all it should be. Can you make a living at it? Yes. And most schools that make a lot of money at it don't actually make money out of the martial art. They make money out of the periphery around it. Pizza night, movie night for the parents, movie night for the kids. We'll pick your kids up at school in the bus so you don't have to worry about them. Let's make the money out of being babysitters so that for a little teeny while we can be a martial artist.
I mean,
Yeah. So John, let me ask you, the karate schools in Japan and Okinawa, are they huge and commercial?
Thank you for making that a separate thing.
Oh yeah, they are definitely distinct things.
Hold on, let me address Keith's thing, and then I'll go right to Dan's point. No, but Keith, there's a lot of people who say that and say that's a negative thing, and I actually think that's a positive thing. I actually think that's a good thing. That I think
I'm not saying it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right in saying that is somehow these places nowadays, because I feel maybe a long time ago that wasn't the case, but nowadays they've essentially become refurbished to be like a better version of the YMCA.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately a good thing, because it goes to what Dan was talking about, because the community isn't going to just do punching and kicking all the time every day, right? They want a movie night, they want a pizza night, they want a parents' night, right? They want brews and boozes. Go out to a bar and learn martial arts, right? Something like that. And I'm not saying you were saying that was a negative thing, Keith, but I was just saying.
I'm not saying. I'm saying that there are two different ways of doing this thing, and one is as a business, and one is this is what I want to do. And Dan and I do not run into, well, essentially we're two different martial arts schools in the same building, but we don't run into conflict because that's not why he or I do what we do. We do what we do for the same reason that John Bon Jovi plays the guitar. Because something somewhere when he was a kid, he picked up a guitar and said, this is the thing. Music is the thing. And he did it so much that other people said, I got to hear what this guy's doing. Well, it's the same with Dan or me. Oh, okay. This guy does it so much. I got to go see what he's doing. I just do it to do it.
Yeah.
Dan just does it. Yes, he needs to make some money. We all need to make some money, but it's not like neither of us are going to compromise what we're doing in order to make the money, right?
And I think the majority of people feel they need to, and they don't need to.
Yeah, that's a good distinction, because feeling like you need to usually means that you do. But when you don't feel like you need to, if you don't feel like you need to, you can totally do all those other things, and it won't compromise what you're teaching. And I think that's the big distinction. And I don't want to get into it too much about that, because I have friends who run all sorts of kinds of martial arts schools, but a lot of the times what I think people struggle with when they do create a martial arts school and they want to start teaching and they want to be successful and professional at it, is they're not entirely sure who they are. They're not entirely sure why they want to teach, what they're teaching. And so when push comes to shove, and it does, and business is hard, when they start to struggle paying bills, they go, I need to make the money. And so they'll do things to make the money. And that, I think, is when they start to lose that. They can regain it, they can, whatever. But if you are not concerned, if you know who you are, what you teach, why you teach, you could do all sorts of things, and it will not change. It won't change your martial.
One thing I want to circle back to, Dan, was what you asked me about Japan and Okinawa. So there are obviously commercial schools here, but they're not the majority. In fact, I'd say they're probably, generously speaking, 25% of the schools here. Yeah. 75% of the schools in Japan and in Okinawa are not run in a specific space that is specifically for a school, right? It's not a rented out facility. It's generally, and this is where the big difference between the United States and Japan, and I think other places in the world is that there is still a value in many places for community centers, for places where nobody owns it. It's like it's owned by the community. It's publicly run. It's done through a gym or a school or somewhere that's open to the public, right? That causes its own issues because I mean, like you don't own the space, but you don't need. And so I mean, 75%, I'd say. I mean, I don't know personally. I don't know how much money goes in from the students to the teachers and stuff like that. I don't know where that financial end ends up, but like
Sure.
I've been living here for almost 9 years now, and most of the time, like I remember I had talked to one of the places I had tried to rent a place from, and I don't know, it was a little bit of a confused situation, but they essentially just let me go into a gym for like an hour or whatever for free or for like very, very low cost. And we had a little thing there for a little bit. But I mean, the gyms here, the gyms in all the schools are very well kept, but they're also very public. They're always in a separate building generally than apart from the school. So you don't run into an issue of like people walking into the school or something like that. It doesn't really happen during the day. But then there's also the community centers are generally run by the towns, and they make sure that they're public, right? You don't have a lot of privately owned properties that do that. There are those, they do exist. I've been to a couple of them, but they're not the majority, at least not in the country / burb parts of Japan. Once you get into the cities, it's kind of a little different, but I think it's pretty much everywhere in the world. So to answer that question.
True. So. Yeah. And that I think is such a unique look or a unique perspective of looking at, the way that they're run here versus like if you were to say the Japanese martial arts as they're run in the West versus how they're run in Japan. And, it just that juxtaposition, that's the word. I think Westerners need to experience or need to at least be aware of, because here we just think, I go and I sign up at the karate school. Like that's.
Yeah. And generally speaking, it's public and it's not the expense that everyone makes it out to be, at least depending on the place. So I heard a thing about Steven Seagal's Aikido school this week and his son running it somewhere in Osaka. And I'm like, kind of want to just stop by and see
that
what's going on.
That would be so interesting. Yeah.
Keith, would you like us to fund you coming here and then we can go on an adventure to Osaka?
I would. Yes, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
Especially to go see his school of all schools.
I didn't know.
Right there
is
kind
it was still open.
Right there would be kind of the encapsulation of what we're talking about. Right? Privately run school that is probably more worried about students than students' well-being. If you catch my drift. Probably more worried about generating notoriety than quality. It's probably all encapsulated right there.
Well, where does he live now?
I don't know. Asia. Is his home? I don't know. Don't want to get too much on the Seagal track. That's a different episode for a different time.
Episode, yeah.
But I mean, how did you guys, I guess, at the end of the workshop, towards the end of what you guys were doing and kind of looking back on it, what do you guys feel like you got them, like both you guys and your students, how do you guys feel like you kind of came away from that weekend? And what do you think, like, going forward, would you want to do something like that again? What were kind of lessons learned? I'll pass to you guys on that.
I said from the outset with Dan, because this was the first time that we were doing this, that he and I would learn more than any of the students that were there. And we did. It was, now the plan is for there to be, what did we decide, Dan? 2 a year?
2 a year, yeah.
So we're going to do it again. We learned about timing. That's a difficult thing. Kind of the gist of the original ad. Hey, Dan, well, pick a time. Oh, well, how about in just literally a month and a half? No, let's have more time ahead and look out for things that are happening around the time period. In terms of the flow, I felt pretty good about it. In terms of it's the mechanics of the workshop that I learned the most about. Don't buy too many t-shirts ahead of time, blah, 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 stuff like that.
There was merch.
There's merch.
Yeah.
There still is merch. You want a shirt?
I'll send you my address and I'll send what do you need
give me my address. I'll send in a size and I'll send you a shirt. Hell, I'll send it to you for free. I got a box of shirts, man.
That is what real martial arts is about. It's not about the training. It's not about the training. It's the merch from the weekend.
It's about how good you look in the end, right?
What's the good of being able to kill somebody if you don't look good doing it? Like, come on.
You gotta have style, man. Wow.
I learned a lot, and I don't think that I can really sum it up well. But one thing that I know more and more and more is that the importance of it. And what I think usually happens, and I've kind of seen a few people here and there do something similar to what we've done, in that you get a bunch of different martial artists together and you can cross train for a weekend. That's not what we did. And I think that is the uniqueness of what we did and the importance of what we did. It wasn't that you're gonna okay, at this block in time you're gonna train with a Kempo guy. At this block in time you're gonna train with a Kali guy. At this block in time you're gonna do Muay Thai. At this block in time you're gonna do BJJ. That's not what we did. We literally, the whole weekend was Keith and I basically immersing people in universal principles. So you did Wing Chun, the people did Tang Soo Do, they did Tai Chi, they did sword work, they did all these things, but that wasn't the point. The point was we did trapping, we did controlling, we did striking, we did principles. Tangentially, you learned how those principles were done in the different styles that we teach. And that, I think we'll be better planned next time on the things that we are cross-referencing. I think the time, the length of the seminar will modify if we need to. But overall, I mean, I don't think anybody left not having learned a lot. I received no negative review. Everybody had told me, it was just, they were blown away. It was amazing. And it wasn't to the point where, like for instance, you go to a seminar and 3 hours in, you go, I have no clue what I did an hour ago, right? Like, how often does that happen? Whereas what we did, we took everybody through literally learning 4 or 5 different martial arts, but they all did the same thing. And we had and we didn't do a whole lot, but they all learned the same thing. So like by the end, they were all doing the same stuff and they got it. It was really cool. It was really cool.
You didn't end up with people coming away going, well, gosh, they do that better.
Right.
In Muay Thai. They clinch better in Muay Thai. Well, no.
Right.
They came away with a better appreciation of what it was all about, that core. What is that core thing that makes whatever technique it is you're working with? There was a striking section, there was a trapping section, a controlling section, application section attached to the trapping session. So they got to see it in their way. Then they got to see it from another perspective, which didn't make them then go, okay, well, the other guys have a better handle on it. It actually, the other guys give me a better handle on the way I've been doing. And all camps came away with that feeling that they had learned more about their own camp by being able to compare and contrast with another camp that's doing the same thing. So,
I think that's the best version of that. You can easily get people to fall into what you were just talking about. Right, when you go in and train with other people, right, and again, get that looking over on the other side of the field sort of deal. But the way you guys had planned it, it was looking at the base code of one thing, and then saying, "Oh, look at the same thing's got the same base code," right? We just like started from a different point and go in a different angle.
All flowers use a Fibonacci sequence. Different flowers, they all look different. They all do the same thing the same way using the exact same math.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing it again. I hope that each time it gets bigger, and I would love to have more teachers, as long as they have the same vision and have the same desire when they're teaching. I would love to have more eyes and more ingredients for the soup.
Well, if I was to fly out to South Carolina for that, I wouldn't be teaching. I'd just be sitting there as Grandmaster of Riffs. So, this is what I told one of our other friends. She's like, I'm trying to get this big Okinawa seminar together, and it was like, you need more teachers. It's like, no, we need more chiefs, not more Indians, not more chiefs. I'm like, I'll be Grandmaster of just sitting there and making jokes and maybe pouring people water. That's what I've got to add.
I would love to have you, John. I would love to have you.
God, I wish we would make that work a little better. If flights were cheaper and shorter.
Dude, I can't imagine how much it would cost to fly out to Japan to here. Gosh.
$2,000, something like that. Inflation.
Yeah.
Inflation. Well, gentlemen, is there anything we want to add before we kind of not close the books on it, but at least stop there for today in terms of the universality of martial arts?
Well, I think it's a good shout out to Keith. He has a YouTube channel.
Ooh.
So definitely drop that link. You don't have to share any of my stuff.
We're obviously gonna share your stuff too.
Nah.
But I also want to shout.
Who's Keith?
Dan about
Who's
this.
Keith?
Well, yes,
Thank
Keith.
you.
What is your YouTube channel for our listeners? There's going to
Oh
be a
my
link.
gosh, it's so there's a link. It's so hard to remember. It's called Wing Chun and Martial Arts.
Did you start that in like 2002? Because like the
Probably, well, no, that channel I started probably around 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. I think the short link is Wing Chun. They now, YouTube now gives you a handle, and I think my handle is Wing Chun SC, as in South Carolina.
Okay.
But look up Wing Chun and Martial Arts.
Because we'll definitely link for that.
You'll see this. And
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Wing Chun
looking up
Martial Arts.
Wing Chun SC
I found it.
brought your trailer
Channel
from
right up.
2021 up.
Yeah. Got it.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Well, that will be there for everyone to see.
Thank you.
No problem. And I want to shout out Dan's now venture into TikTok daddom, where he's just doing dad jokes on TikTok, and now
I'm not even on TikTok.
Well,
He's
don't even forget his
migrated-
calligraphy. Don't forget his calligraphy.
And his
which is
calligraphy and
going
the
Yeah,
man's,
I've,
the man's many
gangbusters.
hats.
I have a holiday special right now with a coupon code.
that has gone gangbusters, millions of views.
We need to do some sort of Christmas special now. Oh my god. I don't have time for this, but at the same time, I'll be up all night writing it. Maybe next year, gentlemen. Maybe next year. All right, cool. Well, my friends, Keith, what are we doing next week or in the coming week for training?
Next week is forms work, so we will concentrate on forms. And the following week will be striking, and it goes through, like I said, these 10 general topics. So next week is forms work. A couple of students have an intermediate form to learn. A couple students have to really knuckle down with their first form, Silam Tao. And I have a senior student that really needs to work on the last closed door form, the secret form, Biuji, which is not secret anymore, but that's the way it used to be back in the old days of just 150 years ago.
Ancient.
Yeah,
Ancient times. Okay, cool.
I'm going to be teaching the closed door front kicks.
Close. This is
Yes, the closed door technique of arm drag.
arm
Close
drag.
the door.
There you go.
Close the door.
As long as no one's holding the door, right? That requires time travel.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, man.
All right. Cool.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Dan,
Yes,
how
thank
about you?
What are we doing next week?
Yeah.
Neutralization of incoming force. That will be the main topic of next week. So focusing primarily on stance work, focusing on mobility in the hip joints and the psoas, mobility in the knees and the ankles, and being able to absorb and neutralize incoming force, whether you're grabbed or punched or whatever, take the hit.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, think of it this way, like, so Tangsudo, one thing that Tangsudo does that I like that you see in other martial arts as well, if you look at the forms, the majority of the techniques work really well if you can get control over the opponent's limbs and their structure. However, if I'm fighting like sport karate and I'm trying not to get hit, it's going to be hard to grab and control the other person's limbs. But if you let them hit you, like really hit you, and they want to put their fist through you, oh, guess what? They gave you their fist. You don't have to reach for it. You don't have to grab for it. But you have to be able to neutralize that force, or else it'll hurt you. So, actually, Keith, you are the first person to kind of awaken me to that long time ago in a JKD class. I don't remember what we were doing. I think it might have been.
Oh, okay. Gate.
What is that called? Gate drills.
Typically called gate drills.
I think we were doing gate drills, and at one point you hit me, and I tried to like do something, and so like you were able to just kind of go boom and hit me in the head, and I remember saying to you like I'm sorry, I was trying to not let you hit me, and I remember you said something like, "Who cares? Just turn and hit me," and I went. And it like, yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you that, but that was one of the first times that I went, oh, it's okay to get hit, because growing up I grew up mostly in a sport karate type of background, even in Tangsudo, and you're out here just trying to play tag, and you don't want to get hit, because if you get hit, there's a point you're going to lose if you get hit, even if the hit doesn't do anything to you.
Like we were talking about this morning, looking at a couple of big time Wing Chun and MMA guys sparring.
Yeah.
And half of their hits, their heads going back to avoid getting hit as they tag the other guy in the face. That is not a fight. That is a game of tag where we've agreed we can't run away. But it's just tag.
Yeah.
I cannot hit you and pull my head back and have it be anything.
Yeah, that's just stretching at that point to a degree.
Right. Well, my body weight, my center is obviously moving away. So yeah, you have to Sifu Fu says, let the guy hit at you. Let the guy hit toward you, not at you. So yeah, I'm not hitting at you. You move or shift or deflect. So he's hitting toward you. This is toward me. This is at me. So just like, in that drill, well, don't worry about it. Just let it come toward you. Hit me.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the big, a big eye opener for me. I don't know, 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
If you get into a fight with somebody, you're gonna get hit. Use it. Don't get hit and then go, get hit, use it. But you have to, and so, you have to be able to neutralize and control that incoming force. And so that's
it's so rarely known though, or thought about in that way. Going back to Sensei Logue, sitting on Gary Schell's front porch on a training Sunday, I said, Sensei Logue asked me about, what do you think about martial karate? And I said, well, I know I'm going to get hit. And he stopped me right there and he said, you'll be fine. And what he meant was, you've already got this figured out. He did not mean you'll be fine from the hit. He meant you've already got it figured out. If you already know you're going to get hit in a fight, you're more than halfway to resolving the issue.
That's the universality right there. Like if you're like you're admitting that because you don't know when that fight's gonna start. You know, yeah, don't want to keep on extending the recording, but I had to do a security thing with people I work with, and I'm gonna go into the details because I don't want to break confidentiality. But one thing I was looking at it, I was like, they're imagining this is an imagined scenario. The scenario that will happen will most likely be one they don't expect, and they don't expect the person to be able to hit them. They expect to always be in control, right? Yeah. And the moment of getting hit is the moment we realize we've lost that control, and we're trying to always kind of gain that control back through our martial arts, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, totally. Like that's a great place to think about that.
That's where you have to start. You're going to get hit, and as Dan is talking about next week, you're going to get hit. It's very Wing Chun. Use that, get control of them, break down their structure, then you're good.
Right. So like in Tai Chi Chuan, we say, listen, understand, neutralize, control, and release. So neutralize what comes in, control it, and then send it away. And in Wing Chun, Keith, what is it?
Kyun Kyut, which is meet what enters, stick to it and escort it away, close the gap or fill the void. So
it's the same thing.
Block it, move it, go in and do something.
It's the same thing.
I'm gonna let you guys take that one because I don't have like a cool thing to be like go in, do the thing, and then like do the other thing. I don't have a cool thing to
but
add
see,
to
there's the universality.
But think like, in karate, you get punched, you block it to move it out of the way, you enter into the space where that block has created the void, and you hit the person. It's the same.
It's universal.
It's the same thing.
There we go. There it is.
John's like, oh God, let's go. Let's go.
No, I'm not. Wait, I'm not trying to go anywhere. I'm enjoying. I'm like, I'm absorbing because hearing this, because I don't get to hear it as often as I'd like to, despite being a karate podcaster. Hearing people being able to reify, like to kind of reifies it for me, and like makes me remember those times and things, and seeing two friends be able to talk about that, makes me more grateful for the times that I've had and those lessons that can reverberate. And hopefully people who are listening to this or watching this can get something out of that too. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you so much. Keith, thank you so much for coming on. I hope this is not the last time we have you.
Hope not.
I hope not.
It's up to y'all.
It's up to you. Dan, you've now become, I want to say, almost a mainstay. So it's good to have you on as well. And yeah, guys, thank you so much, and thank everybody for listening. And everyone, don't forget to keep on training.
Peace.
And we're out.